Good day everyone. We are from Bios 2A and we're going to discuss about feminist and gender studies. Feminism is an interdisciplinary approach to issues of equality and equity based on gender, gender expression, gender identity, sex, and sexuality as understood through social theories and political activism. Historically, feminism has evolved from the critical examination of inequality between the sexes to a more nuanced focus on the social and performative construction of gender and sexuality. Feminist political activists campaign in areas such as reproductive rights, domestic violence, fairness, social justice, and workplace issues such as family medical leave, equal pay, and sexual harassment and discrimination. So, what does feminism mean to us? Quite simply, feminism is about all genders having equal rights and opportunities. It's about respecting diverse women's experiences, identities, knowledge, and strengths, and striving to empower all women to realize their full rights. It's about leveling the playing field between genders and ensuring that diverse women and girls have the same opportunities in life available to boys and men. Can anyone be a feminist? Yes, being a feminist simply means believing in equal rights for all genders. It's not about hating men. It's not about women being better than men. Feminist literary criticism, arising in conjunction with socio-political feminism, critiques language and literature by exposing how these reflect masculine ideology. It examines gender politics in works and traces the subtle construction of masculinity and femininity, and their relative status, positioning, and marginalization within works. Feminist criticism concerns itself with stereotypical representations of genders. It also may trace the history of relatively unknown or undervalued women writers, potentially earning them their rightful place within the literary canon, and helps create a climate in which women's creativity may be fully realized and appreciated. Feminist literary criticism helps us look at literature in a different light. It applies the philosophies and perspectives of feminism to the literature we read. There are many different kinds of feminist literary theory. Some theories examine the language and symbols that are used and how that language and use of symbols is gendered. Others remind us that the men and women write differently and analyze at how the gender of the author affects how literature is written. Many feminist critics look at how the characters, especially the female characters, are portrayed and ask to consider how the portrayal of female characters reinforces sexual stereotypes. Feminist literary theory also suggests that the gender of the reader often affects our response to a text. For example, feminist critics may claim that certain male readers address their readers as if they were all men and exclude the female reader. Additionally, feminist criticism has been closely associated with the birth and growth of queer studies. Modern feminist literary theory seeks to understand the literary portrayals and representation of women and people in the queer community, expanding the role of a variety of identities and analysis within feminist literary criticism.
Many people incorrectly believe that feminist theory focuses exclusively on girls and women and that its inherent goals of promoting the superiority of women over men. In reality, feminist theory has always been about viewing the social world in a way that illuminates the forces and create and support inequality, oppression, and injustice, and in doing so promotes the pursuit the equality and justice. Gender studies is dedicated to the study of feminine, masculine, and LGBT identity. An interdisciplinary approach is used for the study of gender and the intersection of gender with other categories of identity such as ethnicity, sexuality, class, and nationality. Although some of the major methodologies adopted in gender studies are inspired by a feminist criticism, a wide array of theoretical approaches are brought into play of the study and the category of gender. A gay is a word with many meanings. A gay person is a homosexual, but if we describe something like a scene or a party as a gay, that means it's bright, merry, and happy. A gay is someone who is practices homosexuality, having a sexual attraction to a person to the same sex. A gay is a person, especially a man, who is attracted to people of the same sex.
The word lesbian is also used for women in relation to their sexual identity or sexual behavior, regardless of sexual orientation, or as an adjective to characterize or associate nouns with female homosexuality or same sex attraction.
Queer theory. Historically, the term queer has been used to silence, suppress, and shame practices, identities, and values located outside of perceived social boundaries, says Butler 1993. To be referred to as queer meant a person was a symbol of perversion, disdain, sickness, and absurdity. Queer then become defined against what is considered normally in social practices, identities, and values. The goal here is to establish social regulation so that people govern themselves and each other according to what is right or wrong, good or bad, and so forth. The recent reclamation of the term queer represents a resistant movement, largely by academics and activists, to transform the oppressive nature of the term into a positive, political, and preferable depiction of the self, especially for differently gendered individuals, says Pinar 2005. The deployment of queer in this manner is also an attempt to move beyond the hegemonic and historic practice of institutionalized system using identity categories. Example, a homosexual identity. To shame, regulate, and eradicate same-sex sexual behavior, says Foucault 1984. First, we have to know what is queer. According to what I searched, queer is an umbrella term for people who are not heterosexual or are not cisgender, originally meaning strange or peculiar, kakaiba sa Tagalog. Queer came to be used pejoratively against those with same-sex desires or relationships in the late 19th century. Queer theory encompasses both theory and activism. Queer theory can't be defined, but it can be summarized as an investigation into the repressive power of dominant norms, particularly those relating to sexuality and misery they cause people who can't or don't want to live by them. Gender equality. Gender equality is a fundamental human right, yet despite progress, women and girls around the world do not fully experience equal rights and their potential as economic, social, and sustainable development change agents remain untapped. It will currently take over 267 years to achieve equality in terms of women's economic empowerment and participation. Women are underrepresented across business. They receive unequal pay for equal work, and they continue to be targets of physical and sexual abuse. Additionally, women-owned enterprises are economically disadvantaged and lack equal opportunity to compete for business opportunities. Women also face legal and other barriers that affect their opportunities at work and as entrepreneurs. So, gender equality means that men and women have the same rights, responsibilities, and opportunities. Gender equality is realized when man and woman, girls and boys, have equal rights, conditions, opportunities, as well as the power to define their own lives and contribute to society progress.
Gender inequality, also known as sexual equality or inequality of the sexes, is the state of equal ease of access to resources and opportunities regardless of gender, including economic participation and decision making, and the state of valuing different behaviors, aspirations, and needs equally, regardless of gender. Feminist theories that focus on gender inequality recognize that women's location in and experience of social situations are not only different but also unequal to men's. Liberal feminists argue that women have the same capacity as men for moral reasoning and agency, but the patriarchy, particularly the sexist division of labor, has historically denied women the opportunity to express and practice this reasoning. This dynamic served to shove women into the private sphere of the household and exclude them from full participation in public life. Liberal feminists point out that gender inequality exists for women in a heterosexual marriage and that women do not benefit from being married. Indeed, these feminist theories claim married women have higher levels of stress than unmarried women and married men. Therefore, the sexual division of labor in both the public and private spheres needs to be altered for women to achieve equality in marriage. When we say gender inequality is discrimination on the basis of sex or gender causing one sex or gender to be routinely privileged or prioritized over another. Gender equality is a fundamental human right and that right is violated by gender-based discrimination. Gender differences. Some feminist theory provides an analytic framework for understanding how women's location in and experience of social situations differ from men's. For example, cultural feminists look at the different values associated with womanhood and femininity as a reason for why men and women experience that social world differently. Other feminist theorists believe that different roles assigned to women and men within institutions better explain gender differences, including the sexual division of labor in the household. Existential and phenomenological feminists focus on how women have been marginalized and defined as other in patriarchal societies. Some feminist theories focus specifically on how masculinity is developed through socialization and how its development interacts with the process of developing femininity in girls. This is the differences between males and females can be based on actual gender differences. Men and women are actually different in some abilities, gender roles differences, in how men and women are supposed to act or gender stereotypes differences, in how we think men and women are. Sometimes gender stereotypes and gender roles reflect actual gender differences, but sometimes they do not. Another differences between men and women that are specific to a particular culture and influenced by its attitudes and practice. Gender differences emerge in a variety of domains such as careers, communication, and interpersonal relationships. See also sex differences.
Gender oppression. Theories of gender oppression go further than theories of gender difference and gender inequality by arguing that not only are women different from or unequal to men, but that they are actively oppressed, subordinated, and even abused by men. Power is the key variable in the two main theories of gender oppression, psychoanalytic feminism and radical feminism. Gender oppression theories explain women's plight as the result of a direct power relationship between men and women, in which men have fundamental and real interest in controlling, exploiting, and oppressing women. Structural oppression. Structural oppression theories posit that women's oppression and inequality are a result of capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. Socialist feminism agree with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels that the working class is exploited as a consequence of capitalism, but they seek to extend this exploitation not just to class but also to gender. Structural oppression and inequality based on class, gender, color, ethnicity, and age. They point out that not all women are oppressed in the same way, and that the forces that oppress women and girls also oppress people of color and other marginalized groups. Similarity between feminism and gender equality. Both gender equality and feminism have been used to lobby for women's rights in different avenues of the society. Feminism goal is to ensure that women have the same rights and opportunities as men, whereas gender equality is about ensuring that all genders have equal rights and opportunities. Gender equality also believes that men and women should be treated equally and without prejudice based on their gender.
Feminism and gender equality is that feminism relates to the main interests of women. Meanwhile, gender equality correlates with the rights of both men, women, and other gender exhibit in the society. The belief and obligation define each term in depth. Beside, both of them tend to refer parity of among distinct genders. Gender equality will be taught of all genders, irrespective of being unbiased. Unlike feminism, gender equality comes under the administration of the government. In that case, they fully underscore the interests of people globally regardless of their genders. Although parity in status, power, and prestige between who is identified as human beings.